did, thank you. Very much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I did, thank you very much. I do look forward to being a voice. That's the part that I really as much as I can. You know? I know the feeling. Yeah, I mean, I can sit with her going, well, did my part. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just knowing that I'm going to get, I would get good country. No, I haven't. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. I think it said to you guys, because I see what you said about
All right, folks, if you can please find your seats. This room has been limited to 25 people. If you do not have a seat, it's like musical chairs, you are out. I'm kidding. We have an overflow room for those who cannot be in this room tonight. We're going to begin in 5 minutes. 4 minutes, actually.
I don't need one.
And as you know, the election has already happened, so I want to congratulate Jane Ermberger, Nick Thielen, Spencer Head, and welcome you to the Omaha Public School Board. Also want to congratulate Tracy Cassidy and Mr. Ricky Smith for their re-election to the Omaha Public School Board. I look forward to serving with all of you in 2021. Double the fun in 21. There we go. I know. And just to let everyone know, I did not win my election last week, just FYI. It's always good to laugh. How you doing, Mrs. Walter Sue Dodd?
Fine, thank you.
Awesome. I love your mask tonight.
Thank you.
All righty. Pursuant to Section 841411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education of Douglas County School District 0001 and the Board of Educational Service Unit Number 19 will be held on Monday, December 14th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. in the Board Meeting Room of the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the Office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 841412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the board meeting room on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Vice President Dr. Holm will also lead us in the OPS vision and mission statement.
The vision, every student, every day, prepare for success, and our mission. Omaha Public Schools, we apologize. We have a new mission statement that we're going to start reading tonight. The mission, to prepare all students for success in college, career, and life.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Here.
Godding,
Present.
Hallman,
Here.
Cracky, Perlman,
Here.
Ryan,
Present.
Smith,
Here.
Snipe,
Present.
Snow.
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to excuse Mrs. Cracky from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Godding,
Aye.
Hallman,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snipe,
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to start tonight's meeting off with our school spotlight with Jeremy Maskell. Good evening.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, Superintendent Logan. Our OPS Proud Spotlight this week features the nearly 150 students recognized as Advanced Placement Scholars in the 2019-2020 school year. In order to obtain this honor, students must receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. To explain more, we'll begin the video with Dr. Beth Maloney, Teaching and Learning Consultant for Gifted and Talented Education in Omaha Public Schools. We'll also hear from Northwest High's Tu Say and North High's Karen Hickey.
The College Board maintains a level of consistency in those courses so that it can be guaranteed that students who've taken those courses have really had a chance to take college level courses that are similar to other students. AP classes are at the same level as an introductory college course, so they're able to understand what it will be like when they go to college.
Personally, I've been doing really well because I've been acing all my classes, but I really enjoy the whole academic rigor of it and the environment of AP classes because you're in a class with peers that are of similar ability to you. I think it really helps with preparing you for allocating time for certain assignments, scheduling and planning.
I'm in the Project Lead the Way course offered at North High School, so I'm pursuing architecture and engineering. And these AP classes are a great way for me to get advanced for college and will help me with my degree.
Congratulations to our AP scholars.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on to Superintendent Board Communications. starting off with Dr. Logan.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, those here in attendance, and those watching the stream. I would like to open this evening by sharing that OPS Protects is underway at Mars Middle, Norris Middle, and Bryan High School. Through this innovative, first-of-its-kind testing program, OPS is leading nationally by extending optional testing to our students in this manner. The program offers non-invasive, rapid results testing for all students and staff who opt in. Faster results let us more quickly assess what precautions are working and what additional interventions may be needed. In addition, our partners can analyze environmental samples at our 3 pilot schools to better inform COVID-19 case rates and patterns. The families of students tested will receive individualized notifications and healthcare guidance from medical professionals if a student at one of the 3 pilot schools tests positive. We are thankful for our partnership with the University of Nebraska Medical Center, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and One World Community Health Centers. Through their support, we're able to offer easy access to testing that may not otherwise be available. This evening, we are excited to also bring an expansion of OPS Protects for the board's consideration. Pending approval and following winter break, we plan to partner with Charles Drew Health Center to offer OPS Protects at McMillan Middle, King Science and Technology, and Northwest High Schools. This would provide regular non-invasive testing for all staff and students whose families opt in. I should say that after those 2 pilots, the plan is to expand to the entire district. Looking at our work to responsibly maintain in-person learning, we want our families to know that we consider a number of factors before temporarily transitioning a school to remote learning. One of the factors we consider is the number of cases. We consider the number of cases for staff and the number of cases for students. We consider if there's an incident where a student may not be able to wear a mask, or if a staff member is unmasked for some reason. We strongly consider the origin of cases at the school, factors like whether cases are coming in from community transmission or whether there are signs of transmission on site. I will say that the transmission on site among adults will lead us to close the school and temporarily transition quicker. The needs of our students is another significant factor taken into account. At some schools, we may have a larger number of students who are medically fragile or who have a limited ability to wear a mask throughout a school day. The decision is not made lightly. We know our students learn best when we can teach them in person. Each case-by-case decision is made after we have a sound understanding of all the variables. Each decision is made with the health and safety of our school community in mind. Lastly, I'd like to add that before a decision is made to move a class to a remote setting, the principal of the school is invited to the call before the final decision is made so that we can get real-time information that the team cannot see in the data. It's November, and it's only a matter of time until winter weather arrives in our area. Thanks to our one-to-one technology initiative, we have the opportunity to support teaching and learning at home on inclement weather days. It is important that students bring their district-provided iPad home with them each evening and charge each night. The good news is students can learn from the comfort of their blankets on those cold, snowy, icy winter days and even wrap themselves in their favorite blankets. The bad news is nobody loves a snow day more than the superintendent of schools. I looked forward to them when I was a kid. I looked forward to them when I was a teacher. I looked forward to them when I was a principal, and I still love snow days. However, we have lost a lot of time, and we have the technology to keep moving. And the days won't be as long as they are of a regular school day, so children will still be able to go out in the afternoon and play in the snow. There'll be plenty of time for them to do that, as well as have an opportunity to learn at home. Synchronous teaching and learning will only take place in the morning on those inclement weather days. Teachers will take attendance and be accessible in the afternoon to answer questions for additional support. Secondary students will follow a shortened class schedule depending on whether the school uses a block or 9-period schedule. As health conditions evolve, medical experts stress the importance of our health and safety protocols and advise that it will be necessary into 2021. Last week in our health and safety newsletter on our website and through our social media channels, we published our intent to continue using the Family 3-2 instructional model through the second semester or into the school year in 2021. Next Tuesday, November 24th, is now a yellow L through Z day, meaning students with the last names L through Z will come to school in person. Students with the last names A through K will only come to school in person on Monday, November 23rd, and will learn from home next Tuesday. This update allows for one more in-person student learning day for those students before Thanksgiving break. We have all seen the recommendations from health experts to limit gatherings over the holidays. We respectfully ask families that if they are gathering in large groups with others from outside their homes over the holidays, their student pursues remote learning for 2 weeks after the end of that break. This is for the health and safety of everyone in their school community. We also want to prepare families that they should anticipate changes as we proceed into the winter. We've seen that need for an efficient transition as classrooms and schools make that shift across our district. We continue to look for the best ways to responsibly maintain in-person learning through the time to come, and we'll keep staff and family members informed. It is really important that families understand that sometimes these transitions have to be made quickly and to be prepared for a transition at any time based on conditions in our community and conditions specifically to their school. Moving on to congratulations, Adam Malquist of Morton Magnet Middle School for being recognized as the 2020 Middle School Phys Ed Teacher of the Year by SHAPE, Nebraska. This award recognizes Mr. Malquist's innovative and adaptive instruction to meet the needs, interests, and abilities of his students. The 2021 National Merit semifinalists, please join me in congratulating our 6 Central High School Eagles who made the list: Carolyn Dillman, Edward Easton, Emily Engel, Anna Festerson, Killian Green, and Mila Hurstbaum Harding. This academic competition awards scholarship status to students, usually juniors, whose scores qualify them after they've taken the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Congratulations on this outstanding accomplishment. These are some great young people, too. If you've ever had a chance to meet them, they are fantastic. And at this time, in closing, I'd like to offer that we're nearly halfway through a very unusual school year. We know this has been an exceedingly challenging time for families, staff, and administrators. There simply aren't enough words to express the amount of gratitude we have for everyone's flexibility, adaptability, spirit of unity, and commitment to educating our children through these unpredictable times. The emotional health and well-being of our students and staff remain a priority. Our steadfast support of students, staff, and families remains. As we approach the holiday season, we ask that you stay vigilant in your actions. Please continue to wear your face coverings, social distancing for your health, as well as for the health and safety of others. This concludes my remarks for this evening, Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Dr. Logan, and congratulations to the OPS students. Moving on to board members. Any comments from board members? Mr. Perlman? Mrs. Cassidy? Go ahead, Ms. Cassidy.
Maybe I might be a little bit less lengthy, maybe. I just wanted to take a quick moment to kind of echo what Mr. Snow, President Snow, started out with. Just wanted to say congratulations to everyone that is new and will be joining us on the board soon, and of course to Mr. Smith, who will be continuing along with myself. I just want to take a quick moment, though, to thank the voters in my district, in Subdistrict 9, for their support and their continued commitment to me, that I can continue to serve them as best I can. I will continue to do so. I want to thank Omaha Education Association and also the Nebraska State Education Association for their support throughout my strange campaign. It was a strange campaign for all of us. It was such a different election cycle, the first one I've ever been a part of, and it was definitely very different, but we made it through, and I look forward to serving on the board for the next term. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any other board members? Mr. Perlman.
Thank you. Well, I made a PowerPoint this week. Taught myself how to use PowerPoint. So.
Thanks for letting me go first.
I'll be quick. Quick. You guys can sleep through it. Let's see here. All right. Use this here. All right. Supposed to. All right. Hopefully the clicker works. Well, just want to continue on my theme of how COVID is impacting our schools and why more needs to be done. But first, I want to say happy birthday to someone. It's my mom's birthday. She's a public school teacher, so round of applause for my mom. Thank you. I'm sure she's watching. She was a public school teacher in Massachusetts right out of college, and then went to law school, and that's how we ended up here in Omaha. So pretty versatile teacher. Taught 6th grade all the way to law school. So changing gears to, I want to first just run through some of the numbers because it's important to see just straight up the numbers all at once. And trust me, I'll be quick because I think most people know where the numbers are at. But I just kind of consolidated some of the most important numbers from Douglas County. And I think it's important to look at the time frame on when all of this went down. This is just since our last board meeting. Positive tests in Douglas County per day. We were less than 300. Now we're up to 800 as of Saturday. Something funny is going on in the last couple of days. I don't really believe the numbers are at 200 a day the last 2 days, but we'll see what happens the next couple of days. Because it's where it went down, those were Sundays, and so numbers don't get reported on Sundays. So the trend is clearly in the wrong direction. This shows it better because this is by the week. And September 12th is important because on September 14th, our state's leader ripped the Band-Aid off with the DHMs, essentially went from level 2 to level 4, and the consequences are obvious. If we go back, the positive tests in Omaha alone in Douglas County, we were at 500 a day. Back then, we thought that was like a real big problem. It's nothing compared to what we're dealing with now. 8 times as much in the last 2 months. Completely out of control. This is the total cases in Douglas County from when the DHMs were abandoned in Nebraska on September 14th. The week is September 12th. So as you can see, 100% increase in cases in Douglas County since the Band-Aid was ripped off and the DHMs were abandoned. And the consequences have been significant. I think we all know that. Hospitalized in Douglas County, you see the trend there. Obviously, horrible pattern from, up more than 400% in 2 months. Completely unsustainable. And really, I guess, taking a step back, what I'm trying to do here is not plead to the public. What I'm trying to do is plead to the people who can make these decisions. Because every day since April, we keep hearing this drumbeat of the public has to do this, the public has to do that. Well, actually, I think the public is following the rules that are set out there. And maybe it's the rules that are the problem. So hospitalized in Douglas County, we've gone up 400% in the last 2 months. That's completely ridiculous and unsustainable. This kind of lays it all out for you. The DHMs on September 14th were abandoned. The trend line just rockets up. The super spreader event at the airport on October 27th, look what happens 2 days after that, and what's continued to happen in Omaha after that super spreader event. Absolutely ridiculous that people would violate about 5 of the 3 C's all at one event. I heard the governor say yesterday that he would actually consider not withholding money from counties if they allow counties to wear masks inside the building. And that's kind of personal to me because I work inside a county building. And so I don't have a choice. I go to work where counties can't initiate mask mandates. And you know who else can't avoid that? Is victims of crime. I met with a child victim of a crime this week, and she shouldn't have had to be in the courthouse at all, but she did because I was preparing her for a trial. And so you want to hear some compelling reasons. There's one. Here's some others. Laws work. Politicians support and oppose laws daily. That's what they do. They wouldn't do that if laws didn't work. They do. At some of these press conferences over the past week, people have been asking about other laws. Should this be illegal? And we've been hearing that, yeah, this should be illegal. Well, that's because laws work. We have laws for seat belts, smoking, speed limits. Now, people violate all these laws, but the laws work, and that's why we have laws. It's been prescribed. The mask mandates have been prescribed by some of the world's leading doctors, and so that's why we should take our medicine. Dr. Poor, Dr. Lawler, Dr. Rupp, there's no better doctors in the world who know about this stuff, and they're all telling us that a mask mandate is needed. It's free. You know, we don't have to reduce anything to get the benefits of a mask mandate. Absolutely free. Why wouldn't you do that? It's free. It keeps students and teachers in the classroom. Keeps businesses and the courts open. Courts are essentially closed. I don't know if everyone knows that, but courts are closing down, and victims have no way to have their day in court if courts are closed. That's a compelling reason to let local communities decide whether or not they need a mask mandate, instead of having the heavy hand of state government tell people from Chadron all the way to Dakota City what's right for their community. It reduces the impact on healthcare providers. We're starting to hear stories more and more every day about the impact this is having on doctors and nurses. They're completely overwhelmed. Like I said, 2 months ago it was 500 cases a day. Now it's over, 500-600 cases a day. The numbers are ridiculous. These doctors are working double, triple shifts with the nurses, and it's, just asking for some simple common sense measures. And they keep people alive. Masks keep people alive, and that's a really, really good thing. And it's really easy to do. You just wear a mask. It's not tyranny. It's a face covering. I'm almost done. The 3 C's, heard a lot about those. They were at the press conference today. It was a big billboard. The 3 C's, crowded places, close contacts, confined spaces. These are all the 3 things that we should avoid. We've heard a lot about that, but I'm going to add to it, there's an L. Along with the 3 C's, there's one L that's missing, and it's been missing this entire time. It's leadership. We need those who can make the decisions on reducing capacity, wearing masks, and every other thing that we know works around the country to step up and to do something. Yesterday, honestly, it's too late, but we can mitigate some of these things. If schools close, then everything else goes with it, right? I mean, people scramble for daycare. People can't go to work. If we want to say that kids belong in school, then we need to take the easy steps to keep them in school. And what we can't do is go to events like this. You can't go to an event like this. You lose all credibility when you tell people to follow the 3 C's when you go to something like this. It makes no sense. And it really doesn't matter. It could be a Kenny G concert. It doesn't matter. It could be a Peter Gabriel concert. But no matter what it is, you can't go to a crowd of 25,000 people and then preach to a state every day to avoid crowds, crowded places, and close contacts. It doesn't make any sense. So my plea tonight is not to people, because the people are following the rules. The restaurants are open, the bars are open, everything's open. And when if you're a mask resistor, people are going to follow that lead. So the only thing that's going to stop this is by following the doctor's advice. And it's going to keep courts open, it's going to keep the schools open, it's going to keep people alive. It's a simple thing. Everyone in here is all wearing a full slate of clothes because it's normal. We're all wearing socks. A face covering for the next 6 months is not going to really do anything but save lives, keep businesses and schools open.
Thank you, Mr. Perlman. Any other comments from the board? Well done, Mr. Perlman. I appreciate that, and it makes sense. So moving on to our agenda. Sorry about that. Public comment. So I believe we have 7 forms. Masks are required to be worn when you give your public comment. Please make sure your mask is over your nose while you're giving your public comment. The board has adopted policy 8346, which provides public comment for a period of 1 hour. That same policy limits individual speakers to a maximum of 5 minutes. We ask that you respect that time limit. Mr. Ray will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining and when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you are in need of an interpreter, please let Mr. Ray know, and one will be provided for you. If the subject of your public comment is related to a particular student or staff member, we ask that you not mention the student or staff member by name and instead provide that information to Mr. Ray. He will assist us in looking at those types of details for you. If you do not get an opportunity to speak and would like to submit any written commentary, please provide it to Mr. Ray. He will make sure each board member gets a copy. As a reminder, we ask that you please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment. It is now 6:54, and our first speaker is Robert Miller. Good evening.
Good evening, President Snow, Vice President Dr. Holman, Dr. Logan, and members of the board. My name is Robert Miller, R-O-B-E-R-T-M-I-L-L-E-R, and I reside at 7301 North 107th Avenue in Omaha, Nebraska, 68122. And I'm the proud president of the Omaha Education Association. I want to begin tonight by saying I did not advocate as strongly for our members as I should have when we discussed the snow day policy. Our members have spoken and they are overwhelmingly support asynchronous learning on inclement weather days. There are many reasons our members are in support of asynchronous lessons. Our members have children at home. The daycares closed when the teachers' children would be present during asynchronous instruction. Potential power outages, lack of stable internet connection in teacher and student homes, a lack of flexibility in our students' families and inclement weather days. Many of our students are caring for younger siblings or their own children. We ask that the district set a policy of asynchronous learning on inclement weather days. I appreciate the dialogue that Dr. Logan, Mr. Wakefield, and I have had in the last couple of days and look forward to finding a resolution. At this time, your teachers are struggling mightily. They are juggling all these things: concurrent teaching, increased workload demands requiring many hours of after school and on the weekends with no extra compensation, coverage of colleagues who are ill with no substitutes, lack of plan time, reaching out to remote students to make sure everyone is engaged, keeping up with the pacing guides, even though the district has promised relief. A perceived lack of transparency from the district, leaving staff and families guessing about their risk in school. As an example, students see multiple teachers during the day. When a student tests positive, only one teacher is informed. Our teachers are struggling to keep themselves, their families, and their students safe, healthy, and at times, they still feel blamed by the district. The blaming needs to stop and actions needs to start. 75% of our members say that the district is not listening to them. I'm asking you to listen to me. Here's what I'm asking you to do. De-densify our classrooms. Stop splitting students into other teachers' classrooms. Ensure administrators and release time staff are consistently covering classes when there's no subs available. Though some of our members might be upset by this, but in the interest of safety, stop all in-person youth and high school sports until January or until a quick test becomes available for students and staff. Again, or until a quick rapid test becomes available for students and coaches. Provide plan time, not professional development, to allow teachers to adequately prepare for instruction. The Nebraska Department of Education has allowed for an additional 12 hours per quarter, yet principals are filling that time with training rather than allowing teachers to prepare for concurrent teaching. I am providing you a copy of the NSEA resolutions that was sent out today, which states a call for measures to be taken to keep all staff and students safe and to allow students to advance academically. Nearly 1 in 3 of our teachers tell us that they are considering leaving education. We know that teacher retention is challenging in a normal year. Losing 30% of our staff would decimate the Omaha Public Schools. I asked you as a board to provide relief to our staff, our students, and our community, and protect public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, if you could just leave it on the podium, and we'll make sure Mr. A passes that out for everybody. Also, your speech, if you can send us a copy or leave a copy here for Mr. A, we'll make sure every board member gets a copy. I see some people actually writing down some of your needs from your speech. Our next speaker is Jock. And I apologize, I'll let you pronounce your last name. Good evening.
Good evening, President Snow, Vice President Hoffman, and the members of the board. My name is Jacques Musavimana, first name spelled as Jacqueus, last name Musavymana. I'm here representing the Omaha Refugee Task Force, where I serve as the vice chair. The Omaha Refugee Task Force is a network of over 100 different public and private agencies and individuals that work together to support the success of refugees and immigrants in Omaha. I also serve as a life coach at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, helping the young students explore their majors. The executive officers of the Omaha Refugee Task Force ask that you accept the White's Foundation bid to purchase the Yates building. The purpose code Yates Illuminates will provide quality educational programming for refugees and immigrants, as well as the community at large. We know that OPS will have refugee and immigrant programming here at the task building, but we also know that the programming provided by the Yates Illuminates proposal will enhance that programming. We know that as the school district that serves the largest number of refugees in our state, that you understand the needs and the opportunity in working with the refugee community. You know that our refugees will add a great deal to our community, especially if we invest in them by providing the appropriate services. The different partners that will be coming together at Yates, such as Metro Community College, the Refugee Empowerment Center, the Benson Area Refugee Task Force, Restoring Dignity, and others all have education as part of their missions. By supporting the White's Foundation, you will be supporting ongoing education for our community. The Omaha Refugee Task Force asks that you please vote in favor of the White's Foundation bid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hannah Weibel. And as a reminder, please spell your name and state your address. And good evening.
And do you want me to leave the copies of the speech here? Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Hello, everyone. OPS Board Superintendent Logan. My name is Hannah Weibel, H-A-N-N-A-H, Weibel, W-Y-B as in boy, L-E. And my work address is 8000 Chicago Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68114. So the reason I'm here is I'm speaking on behalf of the nonprofit Restoring Dignity. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I can't even imagine the decisions that you guys are making right now in regard to the pandemic. It has to feel overwhelming, and so I appreciate your guys' leadership. But I'm not here to talk about the pandemic tonight. I'm actually here tonight to ask all of you to vote yes on selling the Yates School building to the White's Family Foundation for the Yates Illuminates collaborative effort. Years ago, Omaha Public Schools took the Yates School building and transformed it into a dynamic, life-filled, diverse hub for refugees and immigrants. I remember walking into Yates so many times, and it felt like walking into a different world. Students were smiling and mingling together. There were so many different races, creeds, and religions, but none of it caused division because Yates brought everyone together, regardless of differences. So while that incredible programming has now moved here to the TAC building and will continue to thrive here, we are now looking at the future of the Yates building just right up the street. For myself and so many others, that building on Davenport Street is an icon to the community. Yates is synonymous with collaboration, teamwork, and diversity. And my organization and many others want to keep that strong tradition alive by creating a collaborative community education center that serves the people of Omaha. Additionally, the organizations and programs that will be offered will be a tremendous resource to OPS, as there will be many educational and resource-based programs that will only help strengthen Omaha families. And I can personally say there is so much passion and dedication surrounding this building. It literally could not be going into better hands than with the Yates Illuminates effort. The organization and people involved in this will bend over backwards to make sure that this building is properly renovated, properly run, and properly serving Omaha families. I have been a part of a lot of different community events and initiatives, but this project stands out. There is tremendous support from people all over Omaha to keep Yates alive and well, and I know that this effort will not fail. So I ask you again to please vote yes to letting this building be sold to the community that loves it so very much and wants to carry on its beautiful tradition in our city. And to top all of this off, this is a big win for Omaha because at this moment in time, we need something positive to look forward to in our city. It's a really dark time right now. This is the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life, and I imagine for a lot of people in this room, this pandemic is probably the hardest thing that you've ever gone through. But the hope of our city coming together to create something beautiful and worthwhile is what we need in Omaha right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Adam Watson. Nope. All right. Our next speaker is Walter Sudad. And again, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Walter Sudad, WALTASUEDODD. I live at 3233 Madison Street in Omaha, Nebraska, 68107. I am the Omaha Education Association retired president. Just to bring you a little history. I was appointed as OEA retired representative on the Better Together Coalition to address OSER's unfunded liability and education legislative issues. Nothing was mentioned about turning the governance and management of OSERs over to the state at that time. Several ideas were discussed to improve the unfunded liability in the ARC. One Better Together idea was agreed to by OSER's Board of Trustees, which changed the number of years of amortization of the plan, which helped reduce the ARC. And this all occurred in 2 meetings. Do you think the state will act that fast? Several ideas were discussed. BTC talked about a study comparing 2 systems, but no one mentioned anything about writing legislation. Then LB 31 was given to the Better Together committee members at a meeting. I asked about the origin of the bill. I was told that it was Senator Coulterman's idea. I attended the hearing on LB 31 and found out OPS requested the study. OPS's representatives on the Better Together Coalition did not state that. The OPS had requested and asked Senator Coulterman to sponsor LB 31. Are the OSER's members on BTC being used as pawns to justify the change of governance and administration of OSERs? Why does OPS want to proceed with transferring the governance and management over to the state when there are so many unanswered questions in the study? The answer I received was, oh, we'll take care of those after the bill passes. Here are some unanswered questions. It contains several findings that will require additional research. IMPR's current computer system cannot handle the workload they have now and will have to get another computer. IMPR's latest administrative review recommendation said the purchase of the new computer is needed now. So will OPS buy a new computer system for IMPRs to take over OSERs? Is this going to be charged to OSERs as an indirected cost? The management and governance of the two systems do not address or provide solutions to reduce current OSER's unfunded liability, and it does not alleviate the additional ongoing actuarial requirements or contributions from OPS to OSERs. Will that be in the bill? The report suggested a higher administrative cost for OSER's retirement plan by way of additional staff and actuarial studies. The member services that OSER's members currently have or have come to expect were not addressed in the report. Service credit between the state retirement system and OSER's will not be transferable. Any service credits accumulated in the two retirement systems would require this service to be vested in each plan
1 minute.
prior to the retirement. There are numerous others, including the fact that OSER's members will be denied the right to elect their representatives on the OSER's Board of Directors, which is voluntary. The Nebraska governor will appoint one OSER's representative on the public employees per board. OSER's will have to pay that individual. This will require a legislative bill to change the makeup of the public retirement bill.
30
committee.
seconds.
OEA believes the tentative bill should be circulated showing where the unanswered items are. They should also have questions about Emperor's administrative questionable practices and given to all interested parties to review before the bill is submitted to the legislature.
Thank you. Ms. Walter-Sudad, if you have it for your public comment, you have some questions on there, if you can leave that.
I've turned it in already.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Peter Smalgus. I believe that's they are in the overflow room. And after Peter, it is Justine Neese. Good evening. Please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment.
My name is Peter Smalgus, and I live on 1015 Mercer Boulevard, which is on 39th and Cumming. And speaking of Cumming, if you go out to Cumming and you go up 8 blocks to 38th and Cumming, you go 2 blocks to the north to 38th and Nicholas and Hamilton Street, there's a place called the Walnut Hill Reservoir. And the Walnut Hill Reservoir has become surplus property to MUD. And I've lived in that neighborhood almost all my life. And I have, for a long time, when I found out that property was available, I thought, man, we ought to have some kind of a kids' garden and a farmer's market and an educational center there. They got a beautiful building up there. It was a pump house. There were 3 huge pools where they had water, and they no longer have the water. I just would, I think it would be a great idea to fill up those pools, have gardens, have fruit trees, orchard, bees, goats to eat the grass along the hills, and learn how the kids could learn about, wow, where's milk come from? Where's the honey come from? Where do the eggs come from? It'd just be a phenomenal piece of property to turn into educational place for children. And I believe that you could even use it, you know, you could have it like a farmer's market. The kids could have jobs and earn money by this use of that property. It'd be just a tremendous thing if Omaha Public Schools could incorporate. And I read an article last Friday. I stumbled upon this, and I didn't even plan on it, but it talked about the advantages of benefits of outdoor education, well-being and academic outcomes, critical thinking and social skills and empathy, increase outdoor time, create outdoor living spaces, let kids explore. I mean, it's just exciting to me that that property is available, and that I think the pendulum has gone, you know, from way back when kids learned farming and that's all they knew, and then schools started opening up and now the pendulum's gone all the way to a formal education. I think it would be great to bring it back a little bit and down to earth, because that's a skill. I love the garden, and it's a skill that you can just use from right on through life. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you want to leave your public comment, if you wrote that down, you can leave it there at the top of the podium.
I'm sorry.
Did you have any written comments?
Did I have any?
Did you have any written comments?
No, I didn't have
Okay.
anything else.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Justine Neese. And please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment. And good evening.
Good evening. Justine Stanley. That's Justine. Last name Stanley, Stanley. But I think I put Neese, Neese. That's my married name. That's my name. And my address is 1606 North 34th Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68111. Hi, Al. Before I start, and I promise to be brief, I just wanted to share with you guys that over this last weekend, I graduated college. I was voted board member of both my International Honor Society and Honor Society, and I closed on my first home. Thank you. I'm at a school board meeting after such an exciting weekend, even though I have no kids myself. And I can only hope that this is an indicator as to how important this is to me. I know you've already heard how amazing the Yates Illuminates proposal is, so I won't go there and beat that bush. I will say that Mrs. Yates sold that beautiful building to the school board because she trusted that it would be upheld. Because she trusted that it would be upheld as a building devoted towards education as promised. How fitting that it would later become one of the largest local resources to a diverse group of people from near and far, since Mr. Yates himself was not from Omaha, but he came here, made it his home, and loved his community. How fitting that it would serve as a place for educational enlightenment to both old and young, since Mr. Yates himself was unable to finish school as he wished. This entire community is the epitome of diversity, and that is what makes us such a beautiful community. In my opinion, the last decade has seen developments in the area that have threatened the diversity of this community, with Yates holding its very strands together by a string. Without Yates, it could potentially ruin the biggest and most gorgeous part of the community that sets it apart from others in Omaha. That's why I didn't come here tonight to ask you to save a community center. I came to ask you to accept the Yates Illuminates proposal to save the entirety of my community. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations again. That was our last public comment. Moving on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda that is here before us.
So move.
There's a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Snipe. Any abstentions? Hearing none, Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Goding,
Aye.
Hallman,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snipe,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Bryant. 7 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to our first item of tonight, J1A. This is the 3262 Davenport property. I believe Mr. Scott Roberts will be presenting tonight. Before you begin, Mr. Roberts, I just want to thank you and your staff and your team and everyone that's helped kind of usher this through the process and be able to have the small group meetings with board members to make sure that everybody's informed tonight. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. President Snow, Vice President Holman, Superintendent Logan, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I'd like to briefly review the process that was undertaken this summer on this project. At the June 15th meeting, this board declared the property at 3262 Davenport to be surplus. The parcel declared surplus was the former Yates Elementary School property, a 27,000 square foot building on approximately 1.5 acres of land. Shortly after being declared surplus, Investors Realty was engaged to actively market the property on the district's behalf. In June, they provided a broker opinion of value between $601,000 and $737,000. Investors Realty actively marketed the property for over 4 months. Marketing packages were sent to 77 interested parties, which included other brokers, real estate investors, and commercial developers. Online marketing campaigns were also conducted, which resulted in 418 views of the property. Additionally, a newsletter was sent to over 2,800 Investor Realty contacts. And finally, 14 building tours were conducted. At the end of the process, there were 2 bona fide offers received, one of which was within the broker opinion of value range provided by Investors Realty in June of 2020. A fair and independent process was run by Investors Realty, which included all parties having regular access to district leadership. With the marketing process now concluded, District Administration is recommending acceptance of the $630,000 all-cash offer from Elko Properties. At this point, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have, but first I'd like to introduce Mr. Ryan Keel and Mr. Ryan Zabrowski with Investors Realty. They're sitting behind me in the audience, and they are here this evening to address any specific questions you have regarding the process that they ran or the offers themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll open up for questions regarding property presentation. Any questions? Mrs. Gotti.
I'm sorry, I've been kicked off the internet, so I'm kind of trying to, can you scroll back because I don't have access to anything. Thank you very much. So we've had a couple of offers, and one of them is for the $630,000. And can you remind us, did you have on there what the broker opinion of value? What's the value of the property based on? I assume you're using an income analysis, and I guess maybe I should ask that question on.
Yeah, they used comparable sales of properties in the area and concluded sales.
Okay. And also based on potential income earning as well, or is that right? Because sometimes.
Correct. Capital improvements needed for the building, comparable sales, potential income as well.
Okay. And and can you tell us again what was the value?
$601,000 to $737,000.
$737,000. Okay. And so this offer falls in there. This entity also, and so can you just share with us, and because I know we talked about it a little bit this past week, but how TIF would work and what would happen to this property by being placed, on the rolls of a for-profit entity for OPS from a taxpayer standpoint.
Yes. So as of today, OPS owns the building. No taxes are paid. If the building were sold, typically the way that it works is the county would assess the building. So in this scenario, if it was sold for $630,000, it's usually between 90 and 94% of market rate, which is the assessed value. So trying to do the math in my head, $560,000 it would be assessed for, and roughly, so at the assessed value, the levy would be roughly 2.0024, which would be about $14,000 a year. So $14,000 a year would go to OPS. If TIF were used on the building, there would be a base of $14,000, and in the Elko property proposal, they're proposing potentially $2 million worth of capital improvements. If those capital improvements of $2 million were made, there'd be a period of 15 to 20 years where the OPS and the taxes collected would still continue to be $14,000. And after the TIF ended, 15 or 20 years later, the assessed value would increase to potentially $2.5 million, or whatever that number would potentially be.
And that's what OPS would then be able to collect taxes on, correct?
Correct.
At that point in time, once the TIF was over, okay. Very good, and you all worked really hard to try to get this out there, and there was a bit of a stipulation as far as an educational component that the board attached to this particular transaction, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Do you have any questions? Any other questions from the board? Mr. Perlman.
Yeah, whoever can answer this, I guess, my question is, other than the price, which is being offered, which is what, 6 times the next bid, are there any other reasons why the district's recommending, making the recommendation that it is?
Yeah, really the reasons behind the recommendation, first, it was the only offer within the broker opinion of value, and that was important. It also maximizes the value of the asset that was being sold on behalf of the district. And then it does comply, in our opinion, with fiduciary duties to act in the best interests of the district and the taxpayers that support the district by trying to maximize that value. And then there was also consideration given to the long-term sustainability of the offers and the capitalization behind the principals involved and their ability to maintain that property over an extended period of time.
Can you flesh out for us what you mean when you say fiduciary duties to the district?
Well, it's a taxpayer purchased and funded asset, and that's what I mean by that.
So the Board of Education has a fiduciary responsibility to the community in which it represents. That fiduciary responsibility would be to try to get the most possible for the assets that you have available to you, and that would be your fiduciary responsibility as a Board of Education member.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mrs. Gotti.
I guess I don't have any other questions. I would move that the board accept the offer from Elko Properties.
I have to entertain the motion first. So 1 second, let me. I will now open up to entertain any motion that is here before us.
Okay.
Because I did open it up as questions.
I move that the board accepts the offer from Elko Properties for the sale of 3262 Davenport, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the motion by Mrs. Gotti. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails. How about Ms. Ryan?
Is it okay to make a
How
motion?
about entertain a motion? Yes,
Okay.
just open up a
I
motion.
move that the board accepts the offer from Yates Illuminates for the sale of 3262 Davenport Avenue, Davenport Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102, formerly Yates Elementary School. Approval of this recommendation shall authorize the superintendent to oversee the preparation of the documents necessary to complete the sale, subject to a restrictive covenant which requires Yates Illuminates to comply with the educational uses set forth in its proposal for a period of 10 years. The president of the board is authorized to sign the initial purchase agreement and such other documents necessary to complete the sale.
There's a motion by Ms. Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Snipe. Any other discussion? Mr. Perlman?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know where to begin. This should never happen at a school board meeting. And I hope it never happens again, because this is not how school boards operate. You don't put something up knowing it's going to fail, only to be ready to put up something else. This is how, first of all, this is how you lose superintendents, first of all. Second of all, I have in front of me a quote from someone who just won an election that said his only regret was not giving the superintendent the emergency authorities, and we should never stand in her way of doing what she needs to get done. Well, I guess now that the election's over, and it doesn't even matter who I support or not, it doesn't matter. But this should never happen at a school board meeting. You don't put something up to knock it down and instantly be ready with some legal mumbo jumbo to put up what you want to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Perlman. Mrs. Gotti.
Well, I have several thoughts, so I need to share those so that my community and my constituents understand where I'm coming from. And I realize I only have a few more weeks actually left on the board. But first of all, as Mrs. Nielsbrush pointed out, we do have state statute which clearly says the Board of Education has the responsibility to protect the assets of the taxpayer. And that's all taxpayers, not just the ones that live in a small community, but every single taxpayer all the way across this district. We're talking about over $500,000 difference in the value of what could be given to the taxpayers. That's pretty significant. That's a quarter of a penny, I think, right, when we think about what the levy is. And I've talked quite a bit about how we're over levying the taxpayers, and yet we turn around and we would not even consider the higher offer. So to me, that's an integrity thing. That's clearly integrity for me, for my constituents. I want them to know that I will protect their assets in my vote. Second thing I think about is I think about if any of us had a home that was for sale and someone came and offered us $100,000, somebody else offered us $630,000. I think I know which offer I would take. Even if all of my neighbors said, oh, take the $100,000 offer, I would know that I needed to do the right thing for my family. And in this particular case, my family has been Omaha Public Schools, the taxpayers, the teachers, and the students that we represent. And that's who we would be collecting this money from. So to me, in Mr. Perlman's comments about this is how you lose a superintendent, it's not how you just lose a superintendent, it's how you lose your community at large. And your community at large is looking to us to do the right thing every single time, even when it may not be popular. I completely understand the Yates Illuminates folks. You have done a great job of selling, and I appreciate the community center aspect that you would like to see. But in this particular case, we have to look above and beyond and represent the entire district and not just one small community. And I realize that every community is important, but we lose the respect of our taxpayers when we don't do the right thing, especially in financial situations. We've taxed our taxpayers significantly. Many of my taxpayers have moved to Millard. The levy there is less than the levy now in OPS. And yet we're not willing to collect the money that we should be collecting. So for me, I will be voting no on this particular item. It's not because I disagree. I think it's wonderful what the Yates Illuminates folks want to do, and I appreciate very much the effort. But in this particular case, it's about what I was elected to do, which is to protect the assets of the taxpayer. And it's my fiduciary responsibility to vote no.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan?
The reason why I put forward that motion was because once we did put this property up for surplus, it has always been my intention to make sure that the educational needs for our community, both adult and children, specifically in our refugee and immigrant community, was met. That was part of the intention of the educational component in the covenant. I believe that the other offer doesn't even really address it at all. It has a small moment in it, and then that's all. I understand the taxpayer argument, and I ask that we consider being more futuristic in our tax paying future for our community, and realizing that refugees and immigrants are a huge economic benefit to our country and our community, and that if maybe we create a more welcoming and centralized location for these people to get their services all in one spot with all these different organizations, then maybe we can have a more thriving economic system here in Omaha, because we're valuing these people. And I don't know, maybe it has to do a lot with that my family were migrant workers, and they had to move from community to community until they finally settled down. Maybe that has a lot to do with it. But also, this isn't just a small segment of our community around the Yates building that wants this. This is a large swath of Omaha community members and organizations, and the Chamber of Commerce wants this as well. And they are definitely concerned with the taxpayers' money. And they're definitely concerned with how much we tax folks. But they're behind this, and they see this as a citywide benefit, and that's ultimately why I'm supporting Yates Illuminates and the Whites Family Foundation.
Ms. Snipe?
Thank you, President Snow. So I will just say that Yates holds a very special place in the hearts of the people of Gifford Park. And through my own experience with neighborhoods, I have been involved with neighborhoods for about 15 years now. I currently serve as the president of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. So this decision really isn't about popularity. I would say it's about understanding the value and enhancing communities through such things as empowerment. There is a fiduciary responsibility to help people, particularly in the margins of life. And I would also say that I guess a strong community center would have a positive impact, and really on valuations or other neighborhood properties, and that valuation would be realized immediately. But it's not really about popularity. It is about understanding that sometimes you have to do what's best for most of the people. And as we go through COVID, I can't help but think about the task forces I'm involved with, as we constantly have these conversations about kids and keeping them in school. And I have been firm in that I wish our kids were at home, but one of the problems with keeping them at home is that there's gaps and there's resources that they need. And I can't help but think about a place like this being a resource for communities and our children as we continue to even deal with this pandemic, even though it's much bigger than that. This is about resources, education, culture, employment opportunities, and more. So I just wanted to share why I did second that motion and would be voting yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cassidy?
Thank you, President Snow. I think it's important, first off, to let everyone know in the public and reiterate again that some of our, what seems like maybe silence and we don't have a lot of questions, is that we have been asking these questions since June. So it's not for lack of, us seeming like we don't have any questions. We have been dealing with the Yates property, having small groups going over this information. We've been inundated from community members to be able to come to a conclusion, and that's going to be different for many of us. I understand everyone's point. Mrs. Gotting, well said. Ms. Ryan, Ms. Snipe, also. I don't think I could have said it better than both of you. But I've never been in the Yates building. I've never stepped foot in it. It is not in my community. And I have had some people come to me this week and say, well, why do you even care? Why don't you just vote fiduciary because it's not in your community? It's not going to affect my subdistrict 9, South Omaha, and downtown. But as Ms. Snipe so eloquently put it, I think sometimes you need to make decisions based on the community at large. And I do not serve just my subdistrict. I serve the community of Omaha Public Schools. And this building is clearly loved and clearly important to so many people in the community and not just the Gifford Park area or the Yates area. That's evident, and that's been evident since June. And I do understand that we have a fiduciary responsibility to serve our taxpayers and represent them well. But I feel as if in this case, this building was gifted to Omaha Public Schools many, many years ago by Henry Yates's wife, and it served its purpose. It has served its purpose for many years. It was an educational institution, and it has continued to be that for so many years since the Yates closed as a school. I just feel like, yes, we do have a responsibility fiduciary-wise, but also we have a responsibility to take care of our families and our students, and that means some of our most vulnerable, our refugees, our immigrants. We have a responsibility. Our new motto, what is it? Prepare all students for success. All students, and that includes our refugee students, our students of color, our immigrants, and this building has done so much for those groups of people that I just would hate to see it not continue. I do appreciate the offer from Elko Properties. I understand how important buildings turning into, and we've done it with several of our other buildings. The Vinton Street apartments are right in my area. I jog past them all the time. They're beautiful apartments. The Robin apartments off of 42nd and off the 42nd area. Beautiful apartments, and I understand that this would probably be a wonderful property as well, and it would serve many senior citizens very well. But I do have to agree with Ms. Ryan that the educational component that we as a board placed on this sale of this property, I just do not see it in the Elko Properties offer, and it's clearly bubbling over in our Yates Illuminate offer. I have to vote in favor of Yates Illuminate for those reasons. It's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Any other board members? Mr. Perlman.
So, does anyone know, I heard something about the ownership will be sold in shares. Can someone explain to me how that would be?
I don't have the specifics of their proposal, but they're pursuing a community investment trust model where presumably the community can buy shares and it would be a jointly held property in this trust.
Does anyone here who's planning on voting in favor of it, can they answer that question? Okay, all right. So would the shares be based off 100,000 or the value of the property? Or does anyone here know?
You can't answer, sorry, though, because of the meeting here, but.
No, I'm just asking for the people who are about to vote for it, if they know. Nobody knows who's about to vote in favor of it? Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Perlman. One of the things that we always have to write as board members, we don't always have to answer our colleagues' questions. So just because someone didn't answer Mr. Perlman's question doesn't mean they don't know the answer to Mr. Perlman's question. I want our community to take a step back. You go down here and drive past Jocelyn Castle, that building before OPS bought it was run down. OPS bought that facility, brought it up to code. We used it as the headquarters of the castle. When we left that property, we left it with the community. And every day, if you live in Jocelyn Castle or in that area, people from all over Omaha all over Nebraska come to that area. They get married in that area. They go visit that area because it's a gym for our community. This is another facility that is a gym for our community and has always been a gym. Omaha Public School has a history of being a good steward in their neighborhoods and with their community. Just because a property is not physically in your community doesn't mean it doesn't enhance your population, doesn't mean it doesn't enhance your kids and your community. We're all in this together. And one thing that I love about this district is we're always good stewards in our community. We're always good neighbors, and Omaha Public Schools has always been a good neighbor to Gifford Park, Jocelyn Castle, and any property that we own. We're a very good neighbor. And what I see right now is OPS continuing that model, and something that our teachers, our students, our administrators can be proud of when they're retired and their kids' walk past that facility and know that Omaha Public Schools did the right thing. And I believe we are doing the right thing. I know we're doing the right thing. Mrs. Godin.
I just want to clarify a couple things. Did Mrs. Yates gift the property, or did we pay? I thought we paid $15,000. I want to make sure I get that corrected on the record.
Yeah, the land was purchased for $15,000, and then the Board of Education undertook to construct the school on that site.
Okay, so in today's value, based on when that construction and purchase happened, what would be the value of the property?
The inflation-adjusted value of the land purchase is $386,000 and change.
Okay, so we're selling far below even the inflated value, not only below the amount that's been offered. I think one of the things that, I mean, clearly, I've heard from my constituents. I know where I'm at, right, and I know how. To Mr. Perlman's point, maybe not everybody is with this, Mark. I appreciate your comment, but there is no restriction by anyone who purchases it if they can't make a go of it to not sell it right immediately or for a higher market value. So someone could buy it and then it didn't work out. And I'm not saying that's what the Yates Illuminates folks plan to do, but there's no restrictions on time to sell. The education component expires in 10 years, is that correct?
Yeah, the resolution passed by the board is a 10-year requirement on the educational use of the property.
So once the 10-year requirement is up, there's really no restriction on the use of that property. I mean, we're kind of talking about it as though it's a forever thing, and it's really it's a 10-year deal, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I think I've made my points. I'm very concerned about this from a community standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Godin. I wanted to add one last part to mine before I remember on our board, the last bond we passed for our district, we're building a brand new high school out in West Omaha. It's needed for our constituents, and we are partnering with the YMCA, and our district has always been a partner. Somebody's mic's on. Okay. Our district has always been a partner with our community, and what I noticed was something that I didn't expect, and that was OPS stepping up to the plate to make sure that the YMCA got that facility and making sure that the community out there got the pool and the resources they needed and that they were expecting in that bond. And that was the work of our superintendent and our administration and staff in the district. So OPS, still today, we are continuing this model. I mean, I can give you example after example after example. And tonight, I believe we are going to continue that we are good neighbors, because that is what OPS does. That's who we are. And I guarantee you, if that wasn't the case, you would have a line of people against this proposal. And tonight, obviously, we don't. So, Mr. Perlman, with that, do you have anything else before I do roll call?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Perlman.
So I just don't want people to get confused by my comments that I don't support like what's going on at Yates, because I do. I remember when this board 3 years ago, flew in a couple of people from Chicago to teach it how to communicate and spend $7,000. I skipped it, and I visited Yates that day. I always go there when they have their events before the pandemic. You know, I know what their community is about, and I support it wholeheartedly. So I'd like to make a motion to reject this motion and offer the Yates Illuminates the Yates property for $1. And I'm looking for a second if anyone wants to second that.
Miss, if I'm correct, you can't offer a motion when there's already a motion on the floor.
Oh, it's a motion to amend.
A motion to amend. There's a motion by Mr. Perlman to amend to sell the property for $1. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails. We're back to the motion from Ms. Ryan. Ms. Ryan, please read your motion. That was seconded by Ms. Snipe. And then Mr. Ray, after that, roll call.
I move that the board accepts the offer from Yates Illuminates for the sale of 3262 Davenport, Omaha, Nebraska 68102, formerly Yates Elementary School. Approval of this recommendation shall authorize the superintendent to oversee the preparation of the documents necessary to complete the sale, subject to the restrictive covenant which requires Yates Illuminates to comply with the educational uses set forth in its proposal for a period of 10 years. The president is authorized to sign the initial purchase agreement and such other documents necessary to complete the sale.
And that was seconded by Ms. Snipe. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Holman,
Aye.
Perlman,
Abstain.
Ryan,
Aye.
Smith. Aye. Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Goding.
No.
6 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Roberts, and thank you for putting all this together. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and President Snow, if I could, I'd like to publicly thank our partners with Investors Realty and other district personnel that were involved in the project. They worked very hard over the summer.
Yep.
Just wanted to thank them publicly for that.
Thank you so much for your efforts, Investors Realty. We started this process over a year ago, and I appreciate your work on this effort. Moving on to our next item, J1B. This is the request for approval of the first reading of the policy 1210, Title IX. Are you going to do everything together, Mr. Ray? Or do each one?
Let's do this first, and then
we'll go
we'll
to the
get
next
other
one.
policies.
Makes sense. All righty.
Just give me a minute to. So you're just going to have to go this down. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. All right. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Barry Thomas. I'm the Director of Equity and Diversity for Omaha Public Schools, and I also serve as the Title IX Coordinator for the school district. My effort this evening is to inform the Omaha Public Schools Board of Education on recent changes that have been made to educational institutions, Title IX policies, as required by the Department of Education by the Office of Civil Rights. Tonight, I will be focusing on the specific changes that have been implemented that impact K through 12 schools, and why we are seeking action to update these changes in our policy. Okay. And so Title IX in the K-12 context reads as thus: no person in the United States shall be on the basis of sex, shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under the education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So as Omaha Public Schools, is a recipient of federal funds, we are responsible for ensuring that we are in compliance with all Title IX regulations. To be clear on the expectations and what is covered through Title IX, Title IX protects students and staff from gender and sexual orientation-based discrimination and harassment. Sex-based discrimination is commonly applied to program equity, access to course offerings, athletics, extracurricular activities, amongst other things. Sexual harassment is commonly used when describing assault, stalking, sexual violence, and bullying. So what has changed with our new Title IX policies to be in alignment and compliance with the Office of Civil Rights? The updates to Title IX come from the Office of Civil Rights typically come in the form of Dear Colleague letters. The Dear Colleague letter from 2011 mandated that school districts publish a notice of discrimination, email and or website, which we do, designate a Title IX coordinator, which I am, and adopt a grievance procedure that includes notice of grievance procedure, adequate investigation of complaints, designated and reasonable prompt timeframes, and a notice of outcomes. On May 6th of this year, the Office of Civil Rights issued a final rule on Title IX that mandated significant changes to policies in educational institutions. Unlike previous guidance that have been offered in Dear Colleague letters, this particular new regulation, or these new regulations, were put in and implemented with the force of law. Though this policy is coming before the board for consideration for update after August 14th, our school district has been implementing practices and procedures that align with Title IX since the beginning of the summer. To make you aware of the most significant and immediate changes for policy, there are three massive, if you will, if you've looked at the updated and the new policy, how long it's gotten, some very significant changes that are very clear and evident as you read through the document. First, the established definition of sexual harassment and administrative standards for Title IX compliance. Secondly, supportive measures and investigation processes have changed. And then lastly, the organizational structure around Title IX has changed as well. And so you can see here, as well as you can find on Section 5 on page 3 and 4 of the proposed Board Policy 1210, a clear definition of what sexual harassment is. And again, it has expanded in its definition. Continuing on, supportive measures and investigation. Omaha Public Schools will offer and implement appropriate and reasonable supportive measures to the parties upon notice of alleged sexual harassment and or retaliation. Supportive measures are non-disciplinary, okay, not punitive when we talk about supportive measures. They're individualized services offered as appropriate, as reasonably available, and without fee or charge to the parties. Supportive measures are designed to restore or preserve access to the Omaha Public Schools education program or activity, including measures designed to protect the safety of all parties. So there's a different philosophy and theme as you hear about all parties being protected involved in these cases. All parties or the Omaha Public Schools education environment and or to deter sexual harassment and or retaliation. As far as investigations are thorough, reliable, impartial, prompt, and fair. Investigations involve interviews with all relevant parties and witnesses, obtaining available relevant evidence, and identifying sources of expert information as necessary. As all parties have full and fair opportunity through the investigation process to suggest witnesses and question, to provide evidence and expert witnesses, and to fully review and respond to all evidence on the record. As far as organizational structure, you could find within Section 4 on page 2, as well as in Section 19, subsection E, more information about the changes that have taken place through organizational structure. But it is very clear now that there is a delineation between the role of the Title IX coordinator and the role of the investigator, as well as the role of the decision maker. Those are now clearly defined as three different individuals that need to absorb, or excuse me, I should say, assume those roles within an investigation. And so that's a large part of the big changes that have taken place. And so to that point, that's really the core of what we need to understand as far as what has happened from the change from 1210 in its previous iteration to what is being proposed now to make sure that Omaha Public Schools is in compliance with the new the new regulations through the Office of Civil Rights. And I'll offer myself for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for presenting this. I appreciate it. Open it up for questions, members of the board. Mr. Perlman.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Sure.
Looking on page 2, the definition of consent. Does consent ever come into play in acts that are not sexual activity? In other words, in harassment cases, does that definition need to be altered a little bit to encompass not just sexual activity, but other behavior that might constitute harassment?
Do you have an example in mind that maybe help me to be able to better answer that question?
Well, sexual harassment isn't necessarily sexual activity. Perhaps it is, depending on the definition. And therefore, consent, as defined here, wouldn't apply to, just to use a typical example of a young lady being sexually harassed by a young man, because it's not sexual activity per se.
Yeah, so it is still considered sexual harassment, though?
Correct, but what if the young man says he had consent?
Well, then the investigation would have to prove such.
I know, and I don't mean to get into semantics,
Sure.
but perhaps the word consent could be opened up a little bit to encompass all acts, not just sexual activity. I mean, I don't know. This isn't my call, but it's just maybe, I don't know.
So, and I would offer to that that suggestion that the changes that we have implemented with this new updated to this policy is literally what the federal regulations now demand that we. So any verbs, any verbiage, I should say, any definitions is strictly provided and it's now updated to make sure that we are in accordance with the Office of Civil Rights Regulations. So any wiggle room that we might have with definition would have to come from federal government as opposed to from the individuals who were responsible for updating the policy.
Okay.
Mr. Netanyahu, are you good? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I believe this is an action item. So I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1B.
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ryan. This is the first reading, so there will be additional reading on that for second reading. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Perlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Gotti.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to J1C. This is the request for approval, first reading for policies 1200, 4000s, and 5420. I believe this was given to the board as an information item prior.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Snow. This is, we've had one or two changes since we brought this as information that focused around some of the edits in the, sorry, I get the correct number, 4023. In the copy that we provided, there was some duplicate words. It was just a matter of two people looking at the same document and making some edits in 4023. And I believe that was the only change since, and that's been uploaded into the board agenda.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve item J1C.
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ryan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ray, roll call, please, when you get a minute.
That was Snipe and Ryan, I believe. Is that correct? Smith and Ryan, thank you. Ryan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Goding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
Perlman?
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item J1D. This is the approval of the resolution, suspension of evaluations for teachers 2020, 2021. Mr. Wakefield, good evening.
Good evening. This resolution is a temporary suspension of evaluations for tenured teaching staff. A tenured teaching staff is someone with more than 4 years of experience and is outside their probationary period. This is for a 1-year suspension of those evaluations to help reduce the overall workload, especially in the environment that our teachers are in now, where they're teaching both virtually and in person.
This is related to COVID, correct?
Oh, yes.
Perfect. I just have to ask it so people will know if they're watching on TV. I believe it's something the teachers have requested as well. Mrs. Goding.
So I had some questions, and I think Mr. Ray answered those, but I just want to ask those publicly, and if I forget, you were the one that answered them, so help me out.
Okay.
One of the questions I asked was, does it mean a delay in these evaluations to next year? So would that be a doubling up, or does it mean everybody gets pushed out 1 year, or does it mean that these teachers don't have an evaluation?
It would mean these teachers do not have an evaluation this year. We're going to waive the evaluation. Please note that at any time we can evaluate a teacher if performance is a concern. So we do not have to wait for their next 3-year cycle to evaluate them.
So for this group of teachers, they would get evaluated again in 3 years?
Correct.
Okay. So, and this was something the teachers requested or the administrators requested?
We've worked together with OEA on this. Several of our neighboring districts brought this up, and so we explored this as a workload issue.
Okay. So the only thought I had was, and I've clearly been hearing from folks who think, hey, there's teachers who are talking about leaving at the end of the semester and certainly at the end of the year. That concerns me, and so I was thinking, gosh, everybody loves to have an evaluation and be told, hey, you're doing great, hang in there, keep going. So I didn't know if this was a way to maybe give people a little bit of a boost when they're feeling discouraged, but apparently that's not what the teachers were asking for.
Yeah, and additionally, the goal-setting process that teachers do every year would remain in place, and that is a perfect opportunity for that positive feedback and some critical feedback if necessary that's
Sure.
not evaluatory. This does reduce workload in the amount of preparation that a teacher and an administrator has to go through to prepare and finalize that evaluation.
Okay. So I appreciate you telling us that any time that someone needs to be evaluated, they would be, and I think it's just really important to, as was brought up during public comment by Mr. Miller, our teachers, that just the tremendous stress that they're feeling under right now, that we try to in-house offer as much encouragement as we possibly can. So thank you.
Any other questions? This is an action item. I will entertain a motion to approve the action item that is here before us.
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Mrs. Godin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Any other discussion? Mrs. Godin.
Sorry, I did have one other question. I think I asked it and then I didn't ask it now. How many teachers does it impact that would not receive an evaluation this year and that would have to wait till 3 years out?
Just under 1,000 teachers would have their evaluation waived. That is roughly half of the teacher evaluations we are scheduled to do this year.
I'm sorry, half of what?
The evaluations that were scheduled to take place this year.
Okay.
Because we still would evaluate probationary teachers,
Okay.
teachers in their first
Right,
3 years.
right. Okay, so about 1,000 people. All right, thank you.
All righty. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Smith?
Aye.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Goding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
Perlman?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item J1E. This was an item that was on the consent agenda that was pulled out by Mrs. Cracky, who could not be here tonight. I believe she just wanted the district to go do a run-through on this, but I believe, go ahead, Dr. Logan.
Even though Ms. Cracky in here out of courtesy to her, the item is for rental of the Goodwill facilities for students in the transition program. Those students have intense needs, and so they're slated to come to school every day. And in order to socially distance them, we need additional space, and so that's the reason for that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an ongoing partnership with OPS and Goodwill. I would entertain a motion to approve item J1E.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Snipe. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Perlman.
Why is this on the agenda if the grand total is under 50,000?
There is a potential for it to go over with the extension of the contract. So when we can anticipate that it's going to go over as a courtesy to the Board of Education, we put it on, although it is in the superintendent's authority. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Goding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
Perlman?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We don't have any information items tonight, and we do not have closed session, but I just want to let everybody know that for our receipt reports, the district official fall membership for 2020 to 2021 is for your review, as well as the communities, as well as the K2, which is the Turnaround Schools update. That is a very good document for us, especially dealing with COVID, how the district is transitioning through that. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 8:11. Good night, everybody.